Sparks Planning Commission for Thursday, October 6th. First item on the agenda is roll call.
Roll call, Commissioner Lee.
Here.
Commissioner Bolt. Absent, Commissioner Peterson. Here. Commissioner Barnes.
Here.
Commissioner Nowicki.
Here.
Commissioner Sanders. Absent. Commissioner Sperber. Absent. Assistant City Attorney Doug Thornley.
Here.
City Planner Armando Ornelas.
Here.
Next, we have public comment. Anybody in the audience wish to speak on any item, either on or off the agenda? You have 3 minutes. Seeing none, approval of the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda. Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion approves. Next, we have approval of the minutes for September 22nd.
Move to approve as submitted. Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Announcements and committee reports.
We have none.
Okay. Informational items?
We have none.
0.
No information.
Thank you, Armando. Next, we have the public hearing, PCN 11027. Ms. Karen.
Good evening, Planning Commissioner. I'm Karen Melby, Senior Planner. Before you tonight is a special use permit request from the Northern Nevada Volleyball Group to allow for a recreational facility in the industrial zoning district on a site that's approximately 3.9 acres in size, located at 1575 Linda Way. The property, this chair is weird. It's holding in on me.
Low chair, too.
Can I have the doggy again? I'm sorry.
Why is that not working?
Maybe because it was a red light. Hold on a second. I'm sorry. This is located on the corner of Linda and Gregg Street. Well, we're waiting for that. The applicant has been operating at this location since June of 2011. When they leased the space, the applicant was unaware that they required a special use permit in order to operate at this location. The operation came to the attention of the city when they applied for their business license. The use consists of a training facility for female volleyball players geared for high school age. There are 3 courts. So the maximum use of the facility at one time is 3 teams playing against a coach. I also have the floor plan. Once we get the document.
Hold on. Oh, here
There
we
it goes. Okay. As I was saying, it's an existing industrial building that's on the corner of here's Gregg Street, and this is Linda Way. They are occupying the 20,000 square feet in the north half of the section of the building. This is the floor plan. They have the lobby opening area, entering area, and then they have 3 volleyball courts and a weight training area at the facility. The hours of operation during the school year are from 3 p.m. to about 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. On weekends, they can operate during the day. There are 2 training sessions in the evenings, one at 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. and then one from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. There are maybe instruction for advanced students at different times, which could exceed these hours. During the summer months, the hours of operation also include during the day and on the weekends. Based on the Sparks zoning code for parking, the facility requires 101 parking spaces. The property has 50 parking spaces on site. There is no on-street parking adjacent to the site. Per the code, the site is short 51 parking spaces. Besides the volleyball training facility, there are 2 other operating businesses on this property. These businesses tend to generally operate from 6 a.m. to about 3:30 to 4 p.m. In Title 2049, there is a provision which allows for shared parking when the hours of operation between businesses on the site are not concurrent. Since the their volleyball operates generally in the evening, especially during, well, essentially about 9 months of the year, and the other businesses are during the day. Staff felt that we could allow for the shared concurrent parking. To provide for adequate parking for this business and other businesses on the property, staff is recommending that the maximum number of athletes and students prior to 4 p.m. be limited to 40 persons. In the evening hours after 4 p.m., the maximum number of athletes and trainers, staff, would be 50. These numbers are based on the operation description which was provided to the city in their special use permit application. There shall be no tournaments. Staff is recommending that no tournaments be allowed on site since they are short 51 parking spaces to avoid overflowing problems. During the plan review, the Sparks Police Department expressed concern over parking overflowing into other properties and causing call-out issues for them. So staff is recommending added conditions 3 and 4 in your staff report. Based on the findings S1 through S6 and the conditions of approval, staff is recommending approval. This concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Karen. Any questions for Karen?
Just
Go ahead,
clarification,
Scott.
Chairman Lee. You said adding 3 and 4. You mean conditions 3 and 4 were revised and you added number 5?
No, I have not. My staff report, I'm talking about what's presented in my staff report.
Oh, not what you handed out?
No.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
No. Okay, any questions for Karen? Seeing none, this is a public hearing item. Anybody in the audience wish to come and speak on this item? Yes, come on down. Please state your name, your age, your height, and your weight.
And how well you play volleyball.
Okay. My name is Kurt Huntoon. I'm here to represent Northern Nevada Juniors. Jason Starrett, who's the coach, is of all things coaching volleyball tonight. So they're at a game, high school game right now. So the concerns that we have is when we leased the building, the real estate agent had told us that what we were doing fit the facility, that there were no issues. He had talked to city council members prior and that we weren't going to have any issues. So we went with the information provided by the real estate agent, signed the lease, started laying out the courts, went to apply for the business license, and at that time is when they notified us that it didn't meet the codes and regulations and we were going to need to file for the special use permit. So at that point, that's what we ended up and did, is filed for the permit. We do have the court set up. This is our slow time right now because all the girls are in high school volleyball, so the facility is not even operational at this point, mainly because all the girls are doing all their high school programs. So the way the facility operates is it's by pretty much an appointment only. I mean, this isn't a YMCA daycare type facility. It's structured for traveling tournament play girls, starting usually around 12 years old up to 17 is most of the high school age girls. So the bulk of the girls that are involved or here at the training facility don't even have a driver's license. They don't drive. So what we're saying from our perspective is that parking isn't an issue. The majority, probably 80% of the girls that are here, their parents drop off. They go have coffee at Starbucks down the street. They go shopping. They've got 2.5 hours of free time to go do whatever, parents do. I'm being one of those. It's not stand around and watch volleyball because you already do it 5-6 days a week. So the parking concern that the city is bringing up is really not a situation that we feel is, it's not like if there's 50 athletes there's 50 vehicles there. It's nowhere even close to that. A lot of the parents are carpool together, so it's one of those, they drop off multiple kids and then they leave for the 2 to 2.5 hour session. So what it boils down to really, I think, is the summer schedule, which is about a 10-week time frame when the girls are out of school, is when we would need to operate during the day hours that the neighboring businesses would also be there. operational. And what we'd like to do is have the ability to have the occupancy rating there at 75, which would be 65 students maximum with 10 coaching staff. At that point, we're still figuring there's only going to be, if you had 10 coaches there's 10 of their vehicles and 10 to 15 parent vehicles that just happen to stay for, that training session. We're still only looking at 25 vehicles, and the parking still accommodates 38, 40, actually 42, because there's only 8 dedicated parking spaces for other tenants. So we feel that we're still way under what's available parking-wise. I also, since we had the pre-planning meeting on Tuesday, I think.
Tuesday.
I went and talked to the neighboring tenant, which is Resource Development across the street on Greg Street. They have an open vacant parking lot that they do not use. They use the opposite end of their building, and he would grant us permission to use that if we needed to for parking without any issues, of which I'm seeing here I will certainly go get in writing from them, to bring as approval that they've given us the authorization to do so. So, what we're asking to make the business effective for us here is that we need the occupancy rate, especially for those 10 weeks during the summer, to be over and above the 40 that you guys have listed, and 75, I think, it's kind of halfway in the middle of what we originally put in our plan of 100. The city is recommending 50, and I think with looking at this, as far as I'm considering it as it's a special use permit. I think if you really truly look at what it is that we're doing, we're using this as a very specialized training facility with an age variation of kids, that don't drive. And I think the biggest stumbling block that we've run into is parking spaces. I think it certainly classifies as a special circumstance, to look at. So, as I was waiting out in the lobby, I saw your television screen that said that, Sparks was voted the #1 city for opening a business here in Sparks, and I'm certainly here to hope that you guys fulfill those requirements for us. So,
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
Tom, I do.
Yeah, go ahead, Jackie.
Karen mentioned that the 50 came from your application,
okay.
and so I'm just confused on that number.
Okay.
Did you originally have 50 total or maximum people in the building on the application, or did you know that number was written down?
I wasn't aware that 50 was the original number that was written down. All along that we had been planning for was in the neighborhood of, the majority of the time will be a crossover when you have one training session ending and another one starting, that, you would have some crossover of parents and students. But, the limiting us to, and actually it's limited us to basically it's only 30 athletes and 10 coaches. And we were looking at the fact that we were planning 50 athletes, probably not taking into consideration the coaching staff. So, even at that, our number was probably skewed that it should have been 60, that, we'd like to have 50 athletes and 10 from a coaching staff.
Okay.
Karen, was the applicant aware of these figures at the study session?
Yes, we discussed it.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Because the applicant said 36 when I asked how many kids on each court. And there's 3 courts, 6 on a side.
Right.
Because I wrote this down, 36 players and 10 trainers, so it gave us 46. So that's what we were talking about Tuesday.
Well, but there's on average 10 to 12 girls on a team. There's only 6 on a court at a time, but you rotate girls in. So, on average, we would have I think the average is about 10 or 11 per team that we'd be looking at. So.
Well, they explained to me in the plan review and also study session that it would be 10, approximately 10 per court. So that's where it came. The application even states that. There would be 10 per court, 30 athletes at a time.
Okay.
Who did you talk to at Resource Development? Doug or Roger?
It was just one of the gals in the staff that I would go back and talk to Roger. We do some work together. I also own a welding fabrication business.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant? Karen? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission.
Thank you.
You bet.
I'm not sure that the number, that this 50 is is going to be what they need.
Well,
Commissioner Barnes.
well, I'm thinking, and I'm sorry it's taken me a while. Karen gave us some revised conditions, and I think, the one that's revised for number 4 talks about tournaments and special events. And I think that would give them the ability, especially if it's on the weekend and the other businesses are not in operation, if they do anything on the weekend, that would give them the opportunity to apply to have their capacity increased for that event. I mean, I'm assuming that would cover that. And then also with that other condition that Karen put together for notification of the police department, that would give the police department advance notice. Because that's one issue we always had when we had facilities like this, because we looked at ballet studios, gymnastics, and something else in the industrial area. And, we always have that conflict of putting those kind of uses down there, which I don't have a problem with, because those buildings work great for it. But in the past, police have brought up the issue, well, we don't patrol the industrial areas much on the weekends, and then you're mixing kids running back and forth across the street in an industrial area. So I'm just remembering things we have talked about over the last few years when we started doing this. But I like the idea of, if they do have a special event, that they do like anybody else does, and apply for a temporary use permit for such an event, and also notify the police. I mean, I think I'm getting the feeling that's maybe where their additional participants may come from. I just don't know.
I'm going to open up the public hearing again, and if you want to come back down.
I believe that the clarification for the special use on tournaments is, we're looking at that for probably 4 tournaments per year. Not the daily operational aspect. And again, I think it's that 10-week time frame of the summer that really seems to be the issue. I don't think that, after 3 o'clock when the other businesses are closed, that we really have any, issues as far as parking capacity. It's that 10-week time frame. So, as far as meeting the clarifications or the addendums that you guys have for the special events, we have no problems with that at all. But again, that's only intended for, 4 times out of a year would be a Saturday or a Sunday, on probably 4 occasions.
So I'm kind of perplexed myself, because, you, the applicant, and, you had met with staff, and there were numbers thrown out of 40, 30, and, and we had the study session Tuesday, and it was discussed, and now all of a sudden, in front of the planning commission, those numbers are not adequate.
Well, but we made mention that they weren't adequate. That was our concern when we were there on Tuesday, is that, limiting us to 30 athletes wasn't adequate on Tuesday. That was what we had discussed.
I don't remember any discussion of that at all. I remember parking spaces was, a bit of a problem. And,
right.
But I don't remember anything about, bodies.
Okay. That's why I was asking how many.
Yeah, and you got a number of those, 6 on each court.
There's 6 on each court, because it's been a long time since I played volleyball, so I couldn't remember how many of us were out there. But, because I was trying to figure out what the maximum load would be on that space.
Any other questions, Jackie?
So then, for the revised condition number 3, the reason for, and I know I'm going over this, but the reason for limiting 40 kids, or 40 total, until 4 o'clock, and then 50 after that, was back to regarding the parking situation, right?
That's correct. You have to understand that a special use permit, granting of a special use permit goes with the property. So if the volleyball business would go out of there and a new recreational use moves in there, we have, these conditions and everything will apply to any new recreational use that moves into there. So it's not just what their operation is that you're approving. You are looking at a recreational use. And a recreational use at this site does not comply with the parking requirements of 101 spaces. And so despite the fact that he's saying that maybe the parents drop the children off and everything, that's his operation. But you are approving the use in this spot, and it goes with the land. I just wanted to clarify that.
Well, in worst-case scenario, you have to assume that the parents wouldn't leave, that they would stay there. And it's hard to assume who's carpooling and who's doing all that. I know I coached football for 10 years, and sometimes all those parents would be there. Other times there'd be 3 or 4. But it was mainly because we were outside and weather had a factor. But, you know, I just know from being a parent, most of the time when my kids did sports, I was there for every practice, all the time. And so I kind of question the reasoning that somebody is going to drop off their child and then take off and come back 2 hours later. I've done that a few times, but I think we still have to plan for the worst-case scenarios if they're all there.
Now, do I understand correctly on number 2, it says an expiration, it looks like that this has to be reapplied for annually?
No. No, that's our standard condition on every special use permit, that if that special use permit has been not activated within 1 year, it expires, unless you request an extension, which in your case would not apply generally because you're already operating there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay?
I just go back to the concern that even with the revised conditions, with a total of 50 people on the premises, that's not enough for what you're looking for.
Correct.
So even if we did go from 40 to 50 or up to 50, that's still not going to be what you need.
Again, I think for the 10-week summer time frame, that's the only time frame that we would need more than that 50 number. And that's where we're looking at, you know, that we're offering or would like to, you know, have the number at 75.
I just hate it. I don't want to set you up for a problem.
No, and I certainly appreciate that. But again, it would be, you know, 65 athletes and then 10 at the coaching staff.
Karen?
Yes.
What, explain what happens if someone is in violation of their special use permit 6 months or a year down the road? What happens?
The first step would be to approach them and say that they are in violation and give them a certain time frame that they have to come in compliance. If that does not happen, then we have the option of having the special use permit revoked.
Revoked. And does that go through city council? Or is it just a administrative function? It's been so long since.
I don't remember.
I think that's just the code enforcement.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't.
No, it's not administrative, but I can't remember. And it doesn't logically make sense to go to city council since they don't approve special use permits.
I'm just thinking back a long time ago.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to make him aware of that. We were talking just in vague terms of the other businesses. Were they complaining, or what prompted them to paint their spaces? I mean, did you get any comments from them?
Yes, I did.
What were their comments?
They complained that during this past summer that they had problems finding parking for their employees, is what I was told when I went and talked to the business. So, and they were operating last summer with their day camps or whatever they were.
Armando?
I guess, you know, to this extent, to this point, we've relied as staff in preparing the staff report on the information that was presented to us in the application. Some of that information was reiterated essentially at the plan review meeting and at the study session for the Planning Commission. So, you know, I would suggest that, you know, you have two options. One is that you approve the conditions as revised, and that addresses, you know, one of the conditions addresses the, and provides an allowance for special events and tournaments. You know, it requires that on those limited number of days when there's going to be a lot more cars potentially on the site, that we have a parking plan that's been provided and that is supported by the written permission of adjacent property owners where these other cars might park. I think for a number of reasons, including the reason that Commissioner Barnes has noted about kids crossing the street on a regular basis, I don't know that that's an acceptable way for that business to operate on a day-to-day basis. So I think we've been responsive in terms of trying to accommodate that particular concern and that particular need about for tournaments and special events. The issue of what your occupancy should be during the summer months in particular, but essentially all of the other days of the year. Again, we relied on the information in the application that was provided to us in taking that into account. We're also at this juncture, in terms of the number of parking spaces, already reducing the required parking by more than 50%. So, if the space doesn't work in that regard, then or if the condition doesn't work, we have two options. We can defer this, and you would need to waive your right to have this acted upon within the 65 days. And we can look at this further. You could provide us, a plan for parking on a day-to-day basis that includes that written support from the or written approval from the adjacent property owners, where if in fact there turns out to be a parking problem, there's a place for them to park off-site, and those property owners have agreed to that. Or the Planning Commission could choose to approve this special use permit with the amended conditions, and the applicant can choose to appeal the condition. So, as I see it, those are the two options.
That's what I was going to ask. The applicant, if we did approve this special use permit, he could appeal it to the city council?
If he can appeal the special use permit, or they can appeal specific conditions in the approved special use permit.
And who would that go in front of them?
That would go to the city council.
Okay. Go ahead.
Do we have an option? I mean, you've said that we can postpone this.
Yeah, you have to waive your right. When you submit for a special use permit application, once you have submitted a complete application to us, we have to, per state law, to act on that within 65 days.
Okay.
If you're willing to waive your right to that, then, and Doug, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that's right.
Then we can put this out to the November meeting, and in the meantime, we can try to resolve this issue. But again, the information that was provided to us is what we crafted this recommendation of approval on the part of staff on. And if you want us to consider a higher occupancy, we need some time to look at that. And I don't think we're prepared to look at that.
Yeah, and I think the same thing on our bill, on our time, side as well, is that, if we can come back with written notification from resource development and the neighbors directly across the street, stating that for a 10-week period that they would allow that, is that something that would be beneficial from your part?
Well, all that information would have to go to staff, and they would have to resubmit it.
Okay.
Yeah, because I personally have some concerns with that, not with the off-site parking, but, when you've got the little ones running around, it's up to you to figure out how you manage that. But when they're crossing the city street, and I forgot what street that would be.
Linda and Greg.
Yeah, and Greg is
busy.
Yeah. There's a signal and a crosswalk and everything right there at Greg, but you're right, that is a high traffic.
And that's something I wouldn't feel comfortable, as a planning commissioner approving right now.
Okay.
Saying, well, if we get this, we just had a charter school do something similar to that, and we directed their traffic to the park down at a signalized intersection. I think with the tournament and the camp, the 10-week camp you do, I'm assuming that could be covered under the temporary use permit. If you're doing a special event for a long term, but
Temporary use permits are only good for 72 hours.
well, what did they do?
And you can't have another one for, I believe it's 28 days or something.
Now, what are they doing for the thing down at Shields, the haunted house? I thought that was temporary use.
It is. But
And that's
they're
more
looking, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to bring that up like that. But I'm just saying,
If I may, I think the condition proposes, Karen, and you can clarify this if I'm not quite nailing it. I think what we're proposing is that because, as been represented by the applicant, the number of tournament days is relatively few. I understood 4 tournaments a year. That, and on those days, the use could be much higher. That if they submit a parking plan for those particular events, when there's going to be a lot of overflow potentially, we would review that parking plan, and if we approve it, then they could do those special events. Otherwise, the original condition in as written by staff basically did not allow special events or tournaments at all. So this was a provision written specifically to allow for, special events with this parking plan. And it also required notification of the police department at least 7 days in advance of the event.
And the condition does not require them to get a temporary use permit.
okay,
We're just asking them to provide us with a parking plan.
okay.
So then it kind of goes back to condition number 3 again with the maximum. I wouldn't feel comfortable approving even the amended conditions, knowing full well that 50 is not enough.
Well,
So,
the other reason that I went with that number was that's the number of parking spaces on the site. And we have to remember that the parking is the law. And based on our code, they are not complying with the parking rules. And that's why I felt, because of 50 parking spaces, that's why the reason I went with that occupancy number was it gave me a way that I could recommend approval, because they are 51 parking spaces short per our code.
Right. Doug?
Just really quickly, before you decide what you want to do tonight, you need to understand that just because you defer the decision and you waive your right to the decision within the 65-day period, and you go out and you get letters of approval or whatever from the other tenants or landowners in the area, that doesn't mean that the commission is necessarily going to approve anything.
Right.
So waiving your due process rights is a big decision, and you should think about it before you do that. I'm not trying to influence you one way or another. You just need to be aware of all the possible outcomes.
Okay, but I mean, if we agree to what it is right now, is there anything that we can do to come back at a later date and just, reapproach and just say, what, these numbers just aren't going to work for us. This is what we propose and like to do. Since I've never done this before, I don't know what my, position or opportunities are.
No, I think the conditions that are laid out and that would be approved are the conditions that you have to abide by.
But there's also, they can amend their special use permit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what does that include? What's detailed on an amendment for?
Amendment is basically, you have to apply again for a special use permit, pay the filing fees, and come before the planning commission to amend your special use permit.
Okay.
But that's after an approval, right, Karen?
Yes. They have to receive an approval first, though.
So you wouldn't have to do that just to come back with your new numbers if you waived your decision tonight. If you wanted to say, I'd like to revisit this topic with staff, you wouldn't be repaying the filing fees. You'd be operating under the same application.
Okay. Well, I think at this point, since this is our off-season and there's nothing really going on at the facility at this point in time, that that's probably the most beneficial for us is to waive that and reconvene here in November and let us do a little more homework on on our side and see how we can address the parking. Again, we had no idea that this was a problem when we moved into the building. We were told that the real estate company had already come and talked to you people and said, yep, it's not a problem, you guys are good to go. So this has been a big surprise to us. So we need to, I think, go do a little more homework on our side. Because realistically, if it doesn't work as from a business perspective and we can't make any money, then it certainly isn't 2 years from now going to be any different. So that's a decision that we may have to make if there's no way that we can come to a working solution here. Then we're going to probably have to look at moving the facility somewhere else.
So it's my understanding that you want to defer your right to apply for the special use permit?
It's his right to a decision within the 65-day period.
Okay.
So it's set forth.
Is that what you want to do?
Yes.
So what do we do?
You'd have to table it until November.
Table
So you
it,
don't
or
need
just-
to make a
or
motion to
just-
table it,
well,
right?
No, not
We can
table it.
table it, or we can continue it.
Continue.
We want to continue it,
Continue.
because if we table it, we have to have a meeting
To
where
re-
we have a motion to bring it off the table for the next meeting.
Well, you can, I think, do that at the same meeting.
No,
It's-
well,
We've always done it with
you,
one and then the next.
yeah, you have to do it for noticing.
So,
Continue it.
well, so is November enough time for staff? I know November was thrown out.
Yes, that would be plenty.
Okay, so you can,
I hope that's clear to everybody.
well, you can,
Especially you.
I am thoroughly confused.
And now, will there be another pre-meeting? Like we just did this last week, that we should
Another study
probably
session?
attend prior to, what did you call it, a study session?
Study session, yeah, for us.
Been a long time since I've been to one of those.
Yeah, but we don't typically have this much discussion at a study session.
No.
Or at this
But
meeting.
you'll be.
But before that study session, we will have brought to you.
To staff, to staff.
Okay, okay.
Okay, any questions for the applicant?
Just out of
Okay.
curiosity, the property owner across the street that said that they would provide you with space,
Yes,
do you know how many spaces that is?
I don't. Again, this all happened pretty quickly with us meeting on Tuesday and realizing where we were. So it was a quick, conversation today that I'll go back tomorrow and see what they have parking space ability and talk to, one of the two owners. And
Is that a dirt lot?
no, it's a paved lot.
It is a paved lot?
Yeah, it's paved
Okay,
right
I couldn't
there.
remember. I couldn't remember. Okay.
And again, we did look, it is a crosswalk right there. It is a full light intersection. So, again, it is a busy street. Again, on our Saturdays when we're having our tournaments, that whole area is pretty well vacant on the, on the weekends, on Saturdays, especially on Sundays. So traffic's not, a huge concern there. But, like I said, during the summers at, 8 o'clock in the morning, it's a pretty busy, pretty busy street, so. Okay.
Chairman, would you like me to make a motion?
Well, I need, is anybody in the audience
I'm
to come speak
sorry.
on this item?
We don't.
Anybody else? Seeing none, I'm going to close public hearing and bring it back to the commission.
I move to continue the special use permit associated with PCN 11027 adopting, no, I don't need to say all that. I just move to continue to approve the special use permit associated with PCN 11027.
Second, does that include just to our next meeting, in November?
Whatever staff tells me.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion to continue from Commissioner Barnes and a second from Commissioner Peterson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It will be continued.
Meeting in November?
They'll contact you on that.
It should be the first Thursday in
I
November.
think it's the 3rd. I think it's November 3rd.
The first Thursday, is that correct?
Yes,
and if it's not the first Thursday, it'll be the third Thursday.
yeah.
Which is Thanksgiving.
Oh, well, then it'll be the first Thursday.
Yeah. We won't be having a meeting on Thanksgiving. I can guarantee that.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next we have on the agenda is PCN 11028, Complete Wireless Consultant, Inc. Karen?
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. Karen Melby, Senior Planner. This is a special use permit request to allow in a telecommunication tower within 750 feet of an existing telecommunication tower on a site of 54 acres zoned public facilities at 1350 Bering Boulevard, or as most people know, Reed High School. As you can see, this is Reed High School property. They're proposing it to be in about this area, right by the stadium, which is on the Sparks Boulevard side. In December of 1997, the City Council adopted Title 2102, which is the Wireless Telecommunication Towers and Antenna part of the code. The purpose of this chapter was to establish general guidelines for the siting of wireless communication towers and antennas. Typically, new cell towers are subject to administrative review process, which is a staff review within 60 days of the receipt of the application. If a new cell tower does not comply with the siting distances, then a special use permit is required. That is why this application is before you tonight.
The public notice included that the proposed cell tower would be placed closer than the minimum requirements for distances to residential structures. Upon further review of the project during preparation of my staff report, I figured out that actually it was determined that the placing exceeded these separation distances, and so that was not included in my staff report. In Title 20-102, the required separation between cell towers and residential units is 200 feet or 300 feet of the distance, whichever is greater. The distance required between cell towers is dependent on the height of the cell tower. This cell tower is proposed to be at 84 feet to allow co-location of other antennas on this tower. The other tower that's actually a stadium light, this is proposed to be take down the existing stadium light and replace it with a new stadium light and a cell tower. Let's see, use this one. This is a photo simulation. The top one shows you the existing cell tower, stadium light, and the bottom one shows you the replacement of the cell tower. This tower, the existing tower was constructed in 1997 at 63 feet, and then in 2000, co-location antennas were added, and the tower was also raised in 2006 to 3 feet 4 inches. According to Title 20-102, the required distances between the towers is 750 feet. The applicant is proposing 220 feet. But in order to make it a stadium light, it has to be within that distance to light up the field and stadium area. Prior to selecting the site, Verizon evaluated alternatives, which I have outlined in my staff report. The proposed site will be an unmanned and visited by a technician approximately twice a month to check the facility and perform any necessary maintenance testing. A standby generator and batteries will be located along with the equipment for the cell tower to make sure that it operates during emergencies or disasters. Based on the findings, staff believes that the changing of an existing stadium light to allow it to be a combination of the cell tower and stadium light will not affect the existing land uses in the area. The proposed distance between this cell tower and residential, the closest distance is 294 feet. A little hard to read, but taking the closest residential unit is this building here, which is at 294 feet. Based on all the findings in the staff report, staff is recommending approval with 7 conditions. This concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Karen? Seeing none, this is a public hearing, and open the public hearing, bring it open for discussion. Would you like to come down?
Good evening, Planning Commissioner. My name is Lana Scherer, and I'm here on behalf of Complete Wireless Consulting, and we represent Verizon Wireless with regard to this application. And I would like to thank staff for the staff report and for working with us on this project. We do feel that this is an ideal location. Stadium lights, we often replace stadium lights, and they seem to be well received as it's an existing structure, and this one happens to be in a good location because it is adjacent to residential, which is where a lot of the coverage needs come from. So oftentimes it's not possible to locate directly within residential, so schools are usually located fairly close. This area it's centrally located between other Verizon wireless sites, so it will provide assistance to those other sites to offload their capacity. And in this area, there's been a problem with, dropped calls, failure to connect, and poor coverage, particularly with regard to indoor coverage. So the placement of this facility fits well within the existing network and will really work well for Verizon Wireless coverage. So I'm here to answer any questions you may have, but I appreciate you hearing this application.
Where is the proposed ingress and egress for the tower?
It's through the parking lot and right behind the snack bar, so it's just...
It's all paved back there.
Yeah, it's a paved area, and we drove in directly through the parking lot, and there's a double gate that opens up for a truck to pull in directly behind the stadium.
And then it says this site did not meet, we're talking about the one on Vista, did not meet Verizon's coverage objective. What is the objective?
The center line was too low. I believe it was only 50 feet. And with the, antennas have to operate on line of sight, and we needed to be around 70 feet or above, between 70 and 80 feet to really get the coverage that we needed. 40 to 50 feet just wouldn't work. Just technically, it didn't work.
And with the existing pole that is there now, you couldn't put an antenna or anything on the existing one?
There are already 2 carriers on there. There's not room for Verizon equipment. We do have to have some separation, 10 feet separation from Sprint antennas. They don't play well together. So in order to make that work, we'd have to replace the pole and go at least 10 feet additional separation from the bottom of the antennas to the tip of their antennas. So that wasn't really viable.
Any other questions for the applicant? Seeing none, anybody else in the audience wish to come speak on this item? Come on up. Please state your name and your address, sir.
My name's Scott Crane. I live at 3187 Waterfield. My backyard backs up to Shadow Mountain Park, the mountain itself. I have the concern that when they put the tower in, are they going to elevate the lights any more than they already are?
No, the applicant's saying no.
Okay. And can they make any provisions that they work towards tipping those lights down to shine directly on the field? Because at night, there's a lot of light that comes out. I mean, I'd have no problem walking out in the backyard, in the back field, anytime the stadium lights are on.
Your house is off Shadow Lane, or?
Waterfield Drive parallels the east side of Shadow Mountain Park.
Okay.
So all those lights, when they're turned on, they just shine right into my backyard.
Are you talking about the softball field lights?
Softball field, football field, it doesn't matter. I mean, you pick the game, and they're there.
I get it, too. I'm on the other side.
That would be my only... I came here tonight to find out where specifically they were going to put the tower.
Are you familiar with where it's going to be now? Okay, that'd be way down further from you south, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
But my concern was if they kick the tower up and they move the lights up and have the antennas located below the lights, then, well, we'll go back to when they do road construction and they have the tower lights. It's typical for the construction companies to not kick the towers up. They just tip it up. They don't raise it up, and then they shoot the lights out.
Right.
Oncoming traffic is blinded. And that's all I'm looking for, is that they turn the lights down appropriately onto the field.
And I think the applicant had suggested that, correct?
Yeah, those are, how the field is lighted is for replacing the lights exactly as they are. We're not.
Right,
We
right.
didn't change the tilting.
So there won't be any height difference or anything like that. You're in good shape, young man.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant or Karen? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission.
I can make a motion.
I know you can, Mr. Barnes.
Just waiting. I thought Jackie was getting ready.
I was saying hi.
I move to approve the special use permit associated with PCN 11028, adopting findings S1 through S6 and the facts supporting these findings as set forth in the staff report, subject to the conditions of approval 1 through 7 as listed in this staff report.
Second.
We have a motion to approve from Commissioner Barnes and second from Commissioner Peterson. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion approves. Thank you. Karen. All right, a general business, public comment. Anybody in the audience? Come down, young lady.
Oh, do you need his name?
My insurance company.
Go ahead.
Hello, my name is RJ LaRue, and I am here from the Newton Learning Center that you guys approved for us to move in, and I would like to thank you all for allowing us to get the special permit to allow Second Start to move into the Greenbrae site. We officially opened on Monday, and things are going amazing. The fire department has been amazing helping us. So I wanted to come down and thank you guys personally for everything that you guys have done. Next week, we're having our first open house, and we're inviting you guys to come see our school and meet some of our parents and some of our kids. So I have brought a flyer here, and I'd like to hand it out to you, and I'm
You can do
hoping
that.
that you guys can come see what we're all about.
Very good.
So
Thank you very much. Comments from the commissioners?
Thank you.
I think it's wonderful that you came to say that to us. Thank you very much.
You have been amazing.
Seeing none,
for us.
we're adjourned.